Today we're going to be talking about the milling procedure. That's the set of operations you're going to go through every time in shop that you're going to make a part. And it's going to create a rectangular prism with either parallel faces or edges that are 90 degrees to each other. Now here I've got a giant stack of panels and a couple panels that couldn't quite fit on the stack, and they're ready for step 2 of the milling procedure. The first step is going to be to rough cut all of your parts to a length that's longer than what you actually need. And since I'm making panels, I made it actually a couple of inches longer just so that the glue up turns out really good. Now I've already rough cut these. I did that with the circular saw when I was breaking down that lumber, so that step's already done. What we're going to be working on today is planing both of the faces flat so that they're not only flat but parallel, and we can achieve the thickness of material that I want for the rest of the project. Alright, I'm ready to start planing all these panels that I've created over the last couple of days. One thing I want you to notice while I'm doing this is that I'm planing everything together at the same setting. If I were to set up a separate planing operation for each board, meaning taking one board and planing it down a couple of passes until it's the perfect size, if I were to do that for every single board, that's going to be a huge waste of time, and it's going to introduce some human variable, which is going to mean more potential for error. If I'm off by a tiny bit on this entire stack, I'm going to be able to compensate for it down the road. It's not going to be that big of a deal. But if each individual board is off by a tiny bit, then I'm going to be chasing myself, and it's going to be a lot of trouble in the future. So past Bryce is taking care of future Bryce by making sure these are all the same thickness. Here we go. Normally in the school shop, as soon as you're done planing anything, I'd like you to go straight to the wide belt sander. It's a really easy way to clean up those planer marks and have your workpiece looking really nice. I don't have a wide belt sander, so we're going to do the old-fashioned way. We're going to start with 100 grit sandpaper, go through everything, clean up all the planer marks, and then we're going to go back with 120, kind of clean up after that, and then we'll continue with the milling procedure. The next step of the milling procedure is going to be to joint an edge. This is going to create an edge that's 90 degrees to the two parallel faces we created on the planer. Now, I have a big stack of stuff to be joining, so as I go through it, I'm going to be meticulous about how I place it when I'm done. To the right of the table saw, you're going to see that I have everything stacked, and all of the jointed edges are going to be on the same side. This will make my life easier when I'm ripping at the table saw in the next step, just because I won't have to worry about the orientation of the workpiece. I can just grab it and be ready to go. Just as I was getting ready to joint that stack of wood, I realized that the bed of the planer was a little bit sticky, not particularly slippery. So I'm going to go ahead and wax all of the metal surfaces with this paste wax. We use it in the shop at the school as well. Anytime you have a polished cast iron surface, this stuff's great for keeping it rust free and keeping your work pieces sliding on it nicely. Now that I've jointed an edge on all these guys, the next step in the milling procedure is to rip them to width. Got my fence set to 15 inches, and I'm going to raise my blade up to the proper cutting height. This table saw is not the best example. I don't have a riving knife on it, and I don't have a blade guard. At the school, you need to make sure that you definitely do. And if you have a table saw at home, I would highly recommend having those two features. They make it a lot safer to operate. The final step of the milling procedure is to cross-cut to final length. Now all the panels that I've glued up are at least a couple of inches longer than I need them to be, and so I'm going to cut a little bit off of one end, and that's going to be my square reference end, and you're going to see me put that square end against the fence to make the final cut. So when I'm making a final cross-cut, I'm really making two cuts. I'm cutting one end to make sure it's square, because when you rough cross-cut it, there's no guarantee that after all of the machining we've done to it, it's still square, and then I'm going to make the final cut to length. So right now I've got the fence set to 18 inches. I have 4 parts that I need to make that are 18 inches long. And it's always going to be in my best interest to avoid moving the fence. I have only 4 parts that are going to be 18 inches long. I'm going to cut all of them with the fence in the same position, and then I'll adjust the fence to make the next part. that I'm done with the milling procedure, I'm ready to move on to the next step. What the next step might be for you could be all sorts of things. Maybe you need to drill some holes, or shape this, or cut some joinery. You might even be getting ready for a CNC router operation. The important thing is that we've created a right rectangular prism, meaning all of our edges are 90 degrees and all of our opposing faces are parallel to one another. Having a nice square to the world workpiece is going to make your job a lot easier down the line.